Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the CMAC and TAP Project Selection Committee to order. It is 11:03. Just as a reminder, we are broadcasting this meeting through Zoom, and it is also being recorded. So with that, I would like to go around and introduce ourselves. Doug Ferguson, CMAP. Brandon
Gaber, IDOT.
Tom Rickert, Tom Rickert, representing the counties.
Leon Rockingham, Mayor of the City of North Chicago, Council of Mayors.
Dan Whitecamp, Federal Highway.
Brent Davis, CDOT.
Mark Pitstick, RTA, representing Transit Agency.
and then in the audience. Thanks, Amy.
Amy Lee, CMAP.
John Donovan, Federal Highways.
Todd Schmidt, Federal Highway.
Heidi Lichtenberger, Kane Kendall, Council of Mayors.
Eric Chernondo, Northwest Municipal Conference.
Brian Larson, Northwest Municipal Conference. Drew Duffin, McHenry County Council of Mayors.
Daniel Nickelbein, Trans Systems.
John Hodsma, CMAP.
Leslie Browers, House of Urban Mayors and Managers.
Sam Pavlikovsky, CMAP.
Jessica Abdelmar, King Kendall Council of Mayors. Hannah Dubs with CMAP staff.
Blanca Bella Schneider, CMAP staff.
Evan Hayes, CMAP staff.
Mary Weber, CMAP.
And then Kama, can you read off who's online?
Of course, we have Adriana Webb, Angela King Ramsey, Bill Barnes, Brittany Mattias, Christina Bader, Daniel Thomas, David Tomzik, Dawn Dina, Dustin Clark, Hope Garrett, Jack Malik, Joe Surdam, John P. Jones, John Vanna, Julia Friedel, Carly Casado, Catherine Fuchs, Kendra Johnson, Phoebe Downey, Randall Stevens, and Sonali Tandon.
Thank you, Kama. So with that, we'll move on to agenda changes and announcements. We don't have any agenda changes today. Does anybody on the committee have an announcement? Staff does not. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the meeting minutes. We have before us the draft meeting minutes from our July 13th meeting. Are there any changes or comments on the minutes as proposed? All right, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion for approval.
Tom Rickert, motions to approve.
Thank you, Tom. Second.
Brent Davis, second.
Thank you, Grant. All right, with that, are there any last changes to be made? All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes pass. Moving on to program monitoring. Included in your meeting materials today were programming status sheets for the CMAC and TAP-L programs. These are just informational, but if there are any questions on those, staff would be willing to entertain those at this time. All right. Well, you can always follow up if there are any questions on those. Also, 4.2 was the CMAC programming summary and obligation goal. We are the obligations for CMAC is at $67.4 million currently. We may get a few more million obligated before the end of the federal fiscal year. We do have approximately about 15 million sitting in AC status that could be converted, but it's probably not going to raise too much more than where we're at right now, which is better than what we were doing last year, but still is going to cause the unobligated balance of the CMAC program to grow. So staff's going to probably try to be a little bit more active with some of the active program management over the next year to try to increase that number. We did have some late FTA transfers. I don't know if those will make it this year or not, but we'll work on that as well. Any questions on the obligation goal and summary report? All right. Then we'll move on to project changes requests, 5.1.
Morning, everyone. Give me 1 second while I try to raise this maybe just a little bit. Maybe not. Fountain Blanca. Thank you for coming up here. All right. Included in your agenda package today are 3 project change requests, all of which are cost increases. And one of those cost increases also includes a scope change element as part of the request. So getting into those, the first request is a cost increase for the Northbrook Metro Station and Pace Route Access improvements. Right now, the project has obligated $122,611 CMAQ in federal fiscal year 23 for construction and construction engineering, and has $28,902 CMAQ in advanced construction. The sponsor is requesting a cost increase of $34,475 CMAQ for construction in federal fiscal year 23. And the project was on the March letting. That request was this request that's before you today was made to cover higher than anticipated costs, specifically for the bike shelter and signage components of the project. And the project was re-ranked among bicycle facility projects included in the 22 to 26 program and remained ranked as the first project in that category. Staff recommends approval of the requested cost increase of $34,475 CMAQ for construction in federal fiscal year 23. Moving on to the next request, this is for Glenview for its East Lake Avenue at Waukegan Road intersection improvement project. Right now it has $348,000 CMAQ in advanced construction, $168,000 CMAQ for right of way in 23, and $2,024,000 CMAQ in federal fiscal year 24 for construction engineering. For this, the sponsor is requesting a scope change to extend the project limits approximately 350 feet to the west and 320 feet to the east of the project intersection. And then this is sponsor is also requesting a cost increase of $2,387,000 CMAQ for construction and construction engineering in federal fiscal year 24. The cost increase accounts for a rise in unit prices from the original phase 1 cost estimated that was completed in 2019, and the changes to the project scope that were just outlined there. It was re-ranked and among intersection improvement projects included in the 2020 to 2024 program, and dropped from 3rd to 6th ranked project, which remained ahead of one other project that received funding, and ahead of 16 other projects that did not receive funding in that project category. Staff recommends approval of the requested cost increase of $2,837,000 CMAQ for construction and construction engineering in federal fiscal year 2024, and the requested scope change to increase the limits 350 feet to the west and 350 feet to the east of the project intersection. All right, we got one left here, and that is the Tinley Park project, 84th Avenue and 179th Street multi-use path extension project. This project has $192,800 TAP L programmed in federal fiscal year 2024 for construction and construction engineering. The sponsor is requesting a increase of $156,800 TAP L, and that's to cover increased wetland banking costs. And a wetland delineation study was performed in 2016. However, that study lapses after 5 years. So a new study was required and was done in the spring of 2023. And the wetland area within the project increased from 0.025 acres to 0.474 acres. And the result of that is a wetland banking cost of $196,000. So we re-ranked it with including that cost, and among the bicycle facility projects in the 2022 to 2026 program, and that dropped from 5th to the 6th ranked project, and that remains ahead of 9 other projects that received funding in that cycle program. Staff recommends approval of the requested cost increase of $156,800 TAP L to cover the wetland banking cost in federal fiscal year 24. And that concludes those three changes we received. So if there's any questions, staff would be happy to answer.
Thank you, John. So we have three cost changes that are change requests that we'd like to entertain as one vote. Do I have a motion to approve the three changes as presented?
Grant Davis, so moved.
Thank you, Grant. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mark. With that, are there any items for discussion on the changes as proposed? Yes, Brandon.
Thank you. In regards to the Glenview project, what is the total cost for that project again?
The request or the total cost of the project itself?
Cost of the project itself.
I do not have that in front. Well, hold on. Give me a second. I can give it to you, but it's going to take me a second. So, total cost of the project is $3,405,000, and the CMAQ programmed on there is $2,540,000, and that's before the cost increase. So after the cost increase, there would be $4,921,000 CMAQ.
And the proposed improvement is adding medians, I think, extending east and west. Is that what I read?
Yes.
Okay. Do we, I mean, it's a project doubling. Do we feel that that's in the best interest of the CMAQ program? Or is that the recommendation from CMAP?
Yeah, and what we did when we went through the re-ranking process, we saw it still ahead of other projects, especially in that program. It was ahead of 16 other projects that applied, and we felt that the CMAQ benefit on that project is still strong, and that's why we felt comfortable recommending approval for it. But ultimately it's up to you as a committee to make that decision. So if you're not comfortable, you're welcome to vote otherwise. And I also believe we might have a representative from the project here at the meeting if they want to speak to it at all, or if you have questions for them. I believe they are on the meeting here, so that's also a resource.
I do believe that part of the issue wasn't just the change in scope, but just higher than anticipated costs. Most projects that we've seen over the last 2 years due to inflation have seen drastic cost increases, and that's across the board. It hasn't been specific to just road projects or trail projects. They've all seen higher costs than anticipated.
Awesome. Thank you both. This is, seeing the doubling of a project along with an expansion from what was originally applied for is a little different, I guess is how I'll put it, but I certainly, would follow whatever the recommendation from CMAP staff is. So thank you very much.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, along those same lines, but just sort of more broadly, and not picking on this project in particular, but we have these kinds of projects that pop up, and we, a couple $1 million increases, and this is not the only one. Over the course of the year, we approved several of these, and how do we catch up on that? I know we're over obligated, we're over programmed, but we're under obligated, and at some point we have to catch up. I mean, we're also later in today's meeting recommending the program for the next, couple of years worth of funding. And, we don't usually set aside that much money out of the new program money, but do we use some of that new program money to kind of catch up with stuff that we increased before? Or when do we sort of balance out that?
Well, and we're also coming up on the end of the federal fiscal year. There will be projects that will sunset and move into the deferred list. So, I mean, it's
That's
kind of
one of the things that takes them out. Okay. So
yeah.
we do have some of that. Okay.
Yep.
So
So
only come back in if there's funding available at the time.
correct. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom.
Thank you, Mark, for asking that, because I had the same concern, or thought. And I was also wondering too, does this have design approval then? Is the phase 1 complete, or is this just a preliminary cost estimate?
John, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, I believe it has it's submitting draft PS&E in September. So yes, it has design approval. But I can confirm that.
So this is Adriana with the Village of Glenview. Since the project is led by the Village of Glenview. Yes, the phase 1 was approved by the state, and now we go into addendum, and a phase 2 is new completion we submitting in September. So this is based on like the pre-final plans, not just a conceptual. So we're on track with getting this project completed.
All right, and there's no right of way involved in this project?
There is a right-of-way involved, so that's a separate funding for that. We're not requesting for additional right-of-way, just the construction and construction engineering.
Okay. And so
Thank you.
we anticipate construction then in 2024?
Construction is scheduled for 2025.
25, okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question. It's not one of the projects that's on the agenda. Just staff asked me to inquire about a transfer between Hoffman Estates and Cook County on a access to transit project. Is that just being dealt with as an administrative change?
Yes, I mean, from the standpoint of it's a sponsor change, and we haven't been bringing sponsor changes as long as both parties were in agreement. Yeah.
That's fine. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been processed already in the tip, so it should be good to go.
Okay.
It was a road project that Cook County was the lead on. We had approved funding for a access to transit project along the same route. And so instead of the municipality Hoffman Estates managing the thing, they turned it over to Cook County to do as part of the whole. So it just made sense.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, with that, we have a motion on the table for approval of the project changes as recommended by staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the changes pass. Thank you, John. All right, moving on to 6.0, the 2024 to 2028 program development, and the 6.1, which is the recommended federal fiscal year 2024 to 2028 CMAQ, CRP, and TAP-L programs. So included in your meeting materials was a very brief memo summarizing the public comments received on the proposed programs. We received a total of one public comment, and it was from a sponsor that was included in the program supporting the CMAQ and CRP programs. So based upon that and the lack of any additional comments, staff is proposing to approve the programs today as recommended. The approval will result in a recommendation to the Transportation Committee for their consideration, and they'll consider it on their meeting on September 22nd, which will then go to the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee on October 13th. So with that, I guess I would ask for a motion for approval of the proposed programs. Thank you, Mayor. Do I have a second?
Grant Davis, second.
Thank you, Grant. All right, with that, any discussion on the proposed programs as recommended? I think this is probably the easiest program development process in the 20 years I've been doing this that we've gone through.
It seems like, I mean, you were able to fund a lot of projects between CMAQ and other sources,
Right,
CRP.
With the new CRP funding, and that added an additional benefit. And yeah, and then TAP, we saw an increase in TAP funding from the last federal bill. So we were programming additional funds that we hadn't originally considered in the last program. I do have one question for our FHWA representative. Typically with CMAQ, we will put out, once it goes to MPO for approval, a letter will be transmitted to IDOT asking them to send the program to FHWA for an eligibility determination. And with John departing FHWA. I was wondering, making sure like who should be the party at FHWA that we should send it to. I'm seeing Todd Schmidt raise his hand. All right, Todd. All right, just wanted to make sure that we have our bases covered as we get closer to the final approval. All right. With that, all those in favor of the proposed programs as recommended?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, they pass. Thank you. Moving on to other business. Is there any other business that committee members wish to bring forward today? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to address the committee today? Or online? Not seeing any. All right. We'll move on. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, November 2nd at 11 a.m. And with that, I would look for no other business before the committee. I would look for a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Rickard motions.
Thank you, Rickard. Tom, do I have a second?
Second, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.